This old marketplace dresser is about to get a huge makeover. It's got some really good bones, and although I'm not a fan of those squares on the front, it does have some pretty walnut veneer all over it, so I do want to try to keep at least some of that. So I did get this as part of a set. It came with a hutch top, but it's been sitting around for so long that we've actually been using it as a workbench. It deserves way better than that, so I'm excited to finally give this a makeover. Some pieces, you really have to use your imagination to envision how you want it to come out, but for this piece, I think it's pretty easy to tell that it's gonna look at least okay. That's the bar. As you can see, I'm taking out the hardware before I do anything else because they're ugly, allegedly, and they're in the way. Vacuuming up whatever I can, dust, spider webs. Not really sure who wrote subscribe on it, so I'm cleaning that up too. So before I clean everything, we're just gonna try removing all these squares. And if it's anything like the hutch top, this is gonna be a process. Oh, like getting it out is the easy part, but those pin nails are stuck in there. Ha!
Yes, these things come out easy. What?
You make me do the hard part and you get to do the fun prying part. Oh no. So before you think we're complete boneheads, these pin nails were so much stronger and longer than what they needed to be. They had no business being that heavy duty. So what I had expected to happen was for them to come right through the other side as soon as we hammered them, and then we could just take a pair of pliers and pull them out. No. First of all, they kept bending, and once they got a little bit bent, they kept wanting to bend, and we had to straighten them out every time to try again to hammer them back in. And there were 4 nails in each square, so 32 nails total that we had to fight. So some of them came out like they were supposed to, but half of them were out to get us. Honestly, we kind of just accepted that the fronts were going to be all messed up, and I knew we'd have to fill, like a lot. They were really hard to pull out from the other side as well, but that's a whole other thing. So now all of the squares are out. As expected, they were a giant pain to remove. These are all the tools we used. Finally, get started on cleaning this thing. Simple green.
God, only cleaning?
I'm only cleaning. From. Okay, I don't know if this has happened to anyone before, but the finish is scrubbing off. Oh shit. You can kind of see it here, but look. So just rinsing off with my cloth. But look, if I scrub it hard enough, the finish is coming right off. So it could be wax that I'm scraping off. It's kind of gross. This finish was either really bad or Simple Green is really good. I'm pretty sure it was the finish because when it dried it was pretty raw. But now we're scuff sanding with our new detail sander. Sometimes a normal orbital sander won't be small enough to fit in tight spaces, so it's always good to have a smaller sander on hand. Plus this one comes with like a squishy pad, so that'll be really good for that trim later. So now it's time to fill in all our self-inflicted damage where all those amazing nails used to be. So we've only had this tub for a little bit, but so far I really like it. It's creamy, it's super spreadable, it's not gritty or sandy, which is what I don't love in a filler, and it's pretty strong. So check it out, that's all that stuff that I scraped off. So maybe next time I'll have to try to use Simple Green as a stripper. Okay, also, a blower like this is super handy to have if you don't have one already. We use ours all the time just to blow away dust or any mystery bits out of the shop. Okay, so now it's time to fix the damage on one of the corners. System 3 sent us this 2-part epoxy putty in the color Black Walnut, and it's kind of like quickwood in the sense where you you have 2 parts and you squish them all together like Play-Doh, and then you just mold that to your surface. This is our first time trying out this product, so I really want it to work. Not sponsored, but like I said, they did send this to me. Thanks, System 3. Alright. It's everyone's favorite day of the project. Stripping. It ain't my favorite day. Sarcasm. Okay. Stripping the top, we've got our stripper, our putty knife, 1 steel wool, and then this is just a mister bottle full of lacquer thinner. It's probably gonna come out. Now, if you've been subscribed for a little bit, I've always said that you don't have to use a brush to apply your stripper because cardboard works just fine. Well, now I've gotten even lazier and I just spread it with a stiff putty knife. That works fine too. Also, I'm leaving the corner where I have my repair going on because that still needs to dry. Maybe 2 more. Over here. So after you scrape whatever you can, I'm using an actual scraper now to get off that dried layer on top before we can move on to actually dissolving the residue. Using lacquer thinner in that spray bottle I showed earlier, I spritz it all over the surface and scrub it down using steel wool. This is again to dissolve the dried stripper and remove it so that when I go to sand, it doesn't gum up my sandpaper. We wanted to keep the base wood, so Kendall's using that detail sander again just to take off that finish. The legs, however, needed stripping just due to its shape. I couldn't get the sander in there and I didn't want to ruin those edges. This isn't to say that you can't use an orbital sander on things that are weirdly shaped. I was still using one just to get the last bits of finish off. Stupid thing. Whoa.
Hear that?
So the epoxy stuff is dry now. It dried really hard, it sanded down seamlessly, and now this corner is here to stay. The color too is a really good match, but it's obvious that it's filler, so I'm gonna have to go in with some camouflage work later. We've got another repair here to do, so I'm taping up the legs because I don't want to get any Bondo on the legs. So as you can see, this press board was really messed up and it was flaking off. I decided to rub some glue in it just to get it to like seal together and not flake off, and that seemed to make it harder, better, faster, stronger. Now using Bondo, which is basically a cream version of the System 3 stuff that I used. Either stuff works, but we're planning to paint the body, so it would be kind of a waste to use a brown filler. We're almost done with the boring prep stuff, I swear, but just one more thing. Using that small sander, which actually comes with a sponge pad, I'm doing the trim work before we can finally tape off the wood for primer. We're gonna go in with some Bullseye water-based primer, but straining it first before diluting it just a touch since we're gonna be spraying this. So I'm not sure what's going on with this sprayer. The test spray was fine. I've used this gun before and I really liked it, but it started acting up and being really difficult. Like, I found that it either sprays great or it doesn't spray at all. But you'll see what I mean. I'm not sure if I'm not cleaning it well enough or if it's the gun itself, but that's what's happening. Eventually though, we did get it done, which is the important thing. We're just doing some detail work here, just on all the parts that the spray can't reach when all the doors are closed and the drawers are in. The one thing about primer is that it will show you all the dings that you missed, so we did have to do another round of filling. After that's dry, sand that down as well as any dust nibs from the sprayer on your primer, and it's also really good to just like sand between every coat to make sure that you get a smooth finish. Also, as you can see, we're going in with black, so I'm not worried about the bleed through, but if we were going white, I would throw on some shellac or oil-based primer just on these yellow spots you see here. I'm going to be using Sherwin-Williams Emerald Urethane in Black Magic. The urethane line is made for trim and cabinets, but it is a little pricey. You don't have to do your top coat though, so I guess you save some money there. Honestly, like, just wait for Sherwin's 40 to 50% off deals. They come like every few months, so I'm sure you can find it on discount. I did switch back to Old Reliable here, and it sprayed great even for the first coat where coverage is usually a little spotty, especially with the dark color. I can totally see the squares that are left behind from like when we took off that trim, some like wood filler stuff. I'm using the glazing putty because it dries really fast. So after all that red Bondo's dry, just sand it down again and cover it with black just to like get it back up to speed. Come closer. Just want you guys to see the insides of this. It's got a bunch of scratches, bunch of like missing stain. So I need to color correct all this stuff. Store finish. So this Restore Finish stuff revived the inside, but I still had the scratches to take care of. We're gonna be using Saman Antique Antique Walnut. It's a water-based stain. Shake. Taking the caps of these and then I'm just mixing them on my little paper towel here. That's pretty good. I'm using another salmon stain, this time in walnut, and this time I'm going over the legs and the base. Mineral spirits to clean it. You could use water too, you don't have to use mineral spirits. After all, I'm just trying to get all the dust off. Also, once you wet your wood, it'll show you what color it'll look like after a clear finish is applied, which is exactly what we'll be using today. This is a really easy finish to use and it looks so good. The grain comes out really nice and clear and that walnut comes through so beautifully. Let's do the do.
What are you wearing?
Is it on? Oh, it's not. Oh, want to let go? Now, if you couldn't tell, we are suckers for new gadgets and tools. This headlamp was actually a gift from Kendall's dad, and it's come in handy quite a few times. Okay, so I want you to look at this left door. It's not closing properly, and we thought it was because the bottom piece was slightly bowed, so we decided to reinforce it with another 2x4 just to see if it would help. It didn't, but we thought it must have helped with some kind of structure, so we just left it in. I did end up fixing the door issue though, but I'll tell you about that in a little bit. For now, we're moving on to hardware. My 2 best tips for hardware installation is number 1, use a speed square. You don't want to be eyeballing anything. Number 2 is to get yourself a scratch awl or a nail punch, and this is just so your drill bit has a place to rest so it doesn't run around and you get your hole in exactly the right place. I've made a template just out of some old trim I had laying around. Basically, I measured out the measurements for the holes, and then I can just put it flat against the bottom of my trim, mark out where they line up, and then that's where I'm going to be drilling the holes. Perfect. Okay, so we finally figured out these hinges. You have no idea how many times I tried to attach and reattach all these hinges to these doors, but by the end of it we realized that the hinge is supposed to like kind of wrap around, like here it's supposed to kind of be bent a little bit and wrap around the edge of this surface here. So we switched the hinges. I don't even know if this is making sense to you guys. I'm just so like switched the hinges, and then it wouldn't close. It kept getting stuck on this part. It kept like banging back and forth. So by then took all these hinges off, went to the garage, put it in a vise, and just started like hammering the shit out of it. And so here, I don't know if you can see, but it's a little bit bent backwards. Like here, you can see where it got bent. Anyway, I did that, and then boom, closes. I hope that made sense, but if it didn't, basically I just bent the hinges and then they worked. Now it's time to do some finishing touches, like color correcting areas where we sanded too far, and also that corner that we filled. By the end, I think we were able to hide that filler pretty well. I also put some feed and wax over top of it to tie it all together. So in case you forgot how we started, since this was a pretty long video, here's the before and here's the after. So that is all from me today. Thank you so much for watching to the end. If you liked this video, then please subscribe to the channel, and I will see you next time on Holly's Garage.